Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a new online tools tutorial. My name is Ann Cunez. I am the Senior Manager of Education Programs at Better Investing. I'm joined by Better Investing's Director of Information Technology, and that is Susie Artsberger. Hi, Susie.
Hi, Anne.
How are you?
I am great tonight. How are you?
I'm good. And so I just did want to give a brief intro. I said this is new because we've never done
Yeah.
anything like this before. It's kind of open forum night, Q&A, and we're going to let you guys lead the program. Why don't you tell us a little bit about our session today, Susie?
Awesome. I certainly will. So we had asked our registrants to write in with any questions, and we will certainly take questions as we go along, but we saw what came in and we segregated them into various buckets, meaning there were some questions about an overview of the tools, which one is right for me, some other ones about how do I do something, does the tool do this, or some of the various tools, do they do this or that. Some questions about, hey, are you guys going to ever get around to doing X, Y, or Z? So we'll try and address those. And then some people wrote in with some questions about, like, I don't understand how to do this thing in the stock selection guide itself. So we called those stock selection guide methodology questions. Based on what came in, we're thinking that we might have a very full webinar tonight. And we also want to continue to encourage people to write in questions through the chat panel. So please just keep them coming. That's what tonight's session is for. I'll ask your indulgence as we go through the first ever format like this. So if we don't get to the question that you wrote in about, I am going to follow up with you tomorrow. I might need some more information, but we'll get back with you. So don't fret if we didn't ask it out loud. So I hope that's clear for everyone. And do we have anything else before we move forward?
I think you covered it, all the questions, and it's going to be fast and furious tonight.
Well, I hope so. That would be actually our hope.
Yep.
Okay, so we do have to show our standard disclaimer. We may look at some stocks tonight, but that is totally not the point of this webinar. It's taking your questions about the tools so we can answer them candidly. We are recording this for future use. It will be posted on our YouTube channel, and there will be a link in the follow-up email. So if you have to leave in the middle, or if you have trouble, don't worry. You can come back and see the recording. So, tools overview questions. You want to give us a sense for some of the things that were asked, Ann?
Yeah, we did have several that came in ahead of time, and they were all related to maybe I'm new to the tools, people asking for differences between the Core and the Plus. How can I decide which tool is right for me? So that's what we're going to kind of address here, I think, in this beginning section, the tools overview.
Right.
And Susie, I'll let you walk us through this.
Okay. Well, one of the questions said, explain the differences between the tools. So this gives us a very short view of the major differences. So there's obviously, or maybe not so obviously, there is a price difference because there is a different level of features and benefits. So the Core SSG is a little bit lower priced, and the SSGPlus is a $20 difference all in. If you're in a club, you pay a little bit differently, but it's the same. It works out to be the same money, either 90 or 110. So if you're price sensitive, and we do get asked this question, what is the price? So that is the first thing you'll want to take a look at. But the major thing here is the second item, the workflow. And Core SSG is a step-by-step look at one type of data and then look at another. So you're going to look at sales, and then you're going to look at earnings. SSG Plus is a little bit faster workflow where you're looking at a bunch of data aggregated together in a visual analysis, and then evaluation and so forth, and management analysis. That's a big difference. The tools operate the same in a lot of ways, but this is the major difference here. Moving along, you're going to see many of these options are showing you that the core SSG has slightly less features. That doesn't have to be bad. If you're not going to use these things, then that might be okay. So visual analysis of the graphs, we have more items that you can see, especially on this front side of the, we'll call it analysis, historical analysis side of the world with SSGPlus. The graph and the way it's laid out allow us to have movable graph lines for SSGPlus. Both of them have peer comparison, so that's a pretty powerful feature. We've always thought that. They work pretty much the same between both tools. So you have 3 peers that you can compare against and so forth, and that's pretty much the same. Preferred procedure. So this is a feature calculator, or sometimes I call it a worksheet, where you can do a business model type analysis, and it can help in some cases help you project your earnings per share in the future. Because it's a little bit more advanced, it's not available in the core SSG, and it is available in the SSG Plus. There's also more data, so we look at growth rates over various periods of time. We have more options for you to consider as reference points when you're projecting low price options. You can look at your company's historical data on a quarterly basis in addition to the annual basis that the core stock selection guide methodology uses. Portfolios. So core members or users of the core SSG have access to one summary report. There are more portfolio reports in the SSG Plus tool. More screening and stock idea options, including the SSG Plus, and a slightly different view that is available to you in the stock comparison guide. So the Plus view in the stock comparison guide, you would have access to 42 data items. That's for the person who wants to see it all. We think the core view works just fine in that case. So that's the theme. You've got more extensive data and more features going on there. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then the second part of that question, if you were ready to go on to that, is who is each one targeted for? Why would somebody want the core versus the plus and vice versa?
Right, yes, I was going to go there, but I was thinking I also wanted to point out in the handout section, both on the website and in your GoToWebinar panel, we have a handout with an extensive list with everything as we know it of the differences between core and plus. So you can either download it now, or if you don't want to take the time, you can go later when we post the recording and download that as a handout. So the question is, all right, now that I know these things, how do I know which one is right for me? Well, so let's talk through this. So, Anne, if you came to me and asked that question, I would say, well, how familiar are you with the stock selection guide methodology? Have you done any? If the answer is no and you're just learning, then the core might be for you. So this is for people who are new to the methodology, who want to learn it step by step and get to know it. So we all have a different number of SSGs. I think my number is a little bit lower than yours might be. I'm saying 5 to 10 stock selection guides all the way through gets you a decent handle.
Yeah, it gets to a point. That's the key, is when you're comfortable with the methodology and you're starting to know what to expect in the next step. The core is perfect for the person who wants to learn. And as Susie just pointed out by going through this list, while the core SSG does have fewer features, sometimes that's better for a beginner or a new investor, somebody new to the methodology, because the more features you get, sometimes the harder it is and the more confusing it can be. So if you're not too comfortable, if you're just learning, or if it's been a while and you're coming back to the SSG, the core is often the place you want to start.
Right. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So the plus, is it for you? We would like to hope that if you are using the SSG Plus, that you know something about the stock selection guide. Because if you don't, and you come into this view, you're not going to know what to do intuitively. So by going through the core, you have a nice handle on it. Some of the other cases might be if you are in a club where everyone is really a pro and you have a lot of mentors, you might, and they're all using SSG Plus, you might want to consider Plus. But generally, we'd like you to go to Core, and I'm going to switch over to show you that by using the upper right-hand button. So you see one data item at a time. Then there are some other things we'd like you to consider. So that the SSG Plus, I'm going to switch back as I'm talking, lets you do things in a little bit faster. There's really only 2 tabs that you need to hit and review and fill out. You have some additional data on the front side that you can access here. So if you're a big fan of additional data, that might be for you. If you understand the concept of the income statement and want to utilize that preferred procedure functionality, SSG Plus is the only place you're going to get it, and that's through this historical earnings panel. Here's the preferred procedure calculation. If you want to access additional quarterly data, that would be only through the SSG Plus, where you want to look at how your company is performing quarter by quarter. If you want more stock ideas, so the SSG Plus has a number of search criteria to find stock ideas. It has a number of predefined screens. We're going to actually come back to this. The Core has less. And I would say some other things have to do with maybe your club environment or how you might want to utilize portfolio reports and portfolio tools. And the SSG Plus has access to more portfolio reports. So if you're in a club that uses the PERT report or diversification reports, Plus is the only place you're going to get them. Lastly, and this was pointed out by some of our support staff, there are additional educational classes that go along with the SSG Plus membership. So you got to kind of decide if you're just beginning to learn about this and if you're moving up to SSG Plus and have a handle on it. The nice thing is if you decide to start with Core, thinking I'm just going to get to know this, we can of course upgrade you at any time. There might be a slight payment difference, but we can do it at any time. And I'm going to go ahead and answer a question I see coming in through our question panel. It says,
it was next.
Yes, that's good. People, this is great. Keep asking these questions. Carol B. asks, if you have SSG Plus, can you still use the step-by-step process from Core? Absolutely. You have access to all those additional features and benefits or features, but you watch me hit the Core button here, and I can go back and do my stock selection guide using the fundamentals of the stock selection guide as we have them in Core. So there's less to be confused by. There's also this educational panel that will tell you what you're looking for at each step along the way. So that's a benefit. And we have seen our members, ask for that. Hey, I thought I knew, what I needed to know about sales, for example, but I want to go back and double check.
I'll also point out that when you have access to the Core as an SSG Plus subscriber, and you get these new people in your club, or maybe you're introducing the methodology to your children or a friend, you can take them right to the Core, and that will really help their learning process. So you can become a little bit of a teacher very easily when you've got that Core SSG at your fingertips as well.
Right. You can. That is a very valid way. And I'm looking at another question. And I think I said this, but let's talk about it a different way. Another advantage of Plus is the adding judgment series. So I've kind of
didn't call it out by name. Right. And thank you, Gilbert, for that. I appreciate it.
So I've brought up the BI member homepage, and under Education, is a section called My Classes. And as a Plus member, I have access to a couple things. The introduction to the SSG. All
For
members
all
get that.
members,
Right,
yes.
for all members. And then if you're a Plus member, you get this Adding Judgment, which is an additional set of classes that provides a deeper, well, Anne, you're the education queen. You can
You're
explain
doing
the
a fine
difference.
job. But yeah, I mean, the introduction does just that. It introduces you to the SSG and the methodology, and the next series, the Adding Judgment series, takes it to the next step where it's starting to help you refine your judgments, how to access research so that you can really come up with those, what we call reasonable and supportable judgments on your SSG. As well as there's those 3 other classes that are following. They're just little extra bonuses. One's about the preferred procedure, sectors in your portfolio, and the art of judgments. Those are 3 other member benefits that are also rolled into the Plus membership.
Yeah, only for Plus.
Only, well, or you can purchase them,
Well,
but
right.
it's a great deal for Plus members.
Okay. So if you have any other questions about differences on the tools and so forth, please write them in. If we can't circle back, we'll answer you later. But right now, I'm going to try and find my correct
Yeah, well, let's just
presentation.
go on. I don't know what you've got in your, I should know, but I'm not really sure
We're going
what
to
you
talk
have.
about
Most of
questions.
it's live, yeah. Feature,
Right. Feature
right?
question. Well, before we leave this, I
at this
just
point,
want to
yeah.
point this out, that we have tried very hard between all of our tools to make sure that if you use, they are the same methodology, and they're going to use the same results if you have, or generate the same results if you use the same judgment points, the starting points, and so forth. So don't worry about that. Now, questions about features. We received a significant number of questions about features, and we've got a couple more coming in, it looks like.
We do. Yes, indeed. I'm going to save the one at the top for a little bit later when we get to the comparison guides. Don't worry, Robert. We'll get to your question. But let's just go with some of the ones that we had that were sent in early.
Okay.
Here's one about sharing SSGs. Now, we've got some really powerful sharing features. And the question is, if you're sharing an SSG with somebody, do your notes go along with them if you've used that feature?
Yes, they do. So let's kind of catch everybody up on what a note is. Under tools, we have the ability to add notes. So I can click on the adding notes function and create a new note, or there's already a note there. Let's say my new note. And I'll be able to save that. Now, we have a pretty, I'm trying to feel if powerful is the right word, and I think it is. So you can share your studies with other people, and you can share them in a number of different formats. Let's talk about those different formats and which ones support notes. So one of the easiest ways is to share a copy of an online study. And what this means is there's no explicit exporting and importing. We just send the recipient an email. They accept the study into their account. This supports notes. SSG data file. This is a older style format that was used to import data into older desktop products. It does not support notes. ITK data file does support notes. And so when you're actually sharing online in a digital manner, those support notes. You can share a PDF and you can append the notes. I'm not quite sure. I don't believe that that's what the user was asking. So I'm going to uncheck those. Now, I'm going to select my recipient. I have no one in here, but I'm going to add myself. I'm going to get all kinds of, well, yeah, why not?
Go for it.
Yay, everyone. I'm going to select myself and send me the study. All right. Now, on the other side of the world, let me see if I can show you what that looks like.
And just while she's doing that, let me just say that you, in the print options, very similar to the PDF, always have the option to create your print version, your PDF, with or without your notes.
Right.
I've been using notes a lot lately. I find that as I'm making changes or getting new data in my research, it's a great place to just keep logging your notes. So I've been using them pretty extensively. So here you go.
Here you go. It came in my inbox. No judging about how many open emails unread emails I have. Here's the ITK format that I can do something with. Here is all I need to do to bring it in online. So I'm just going to click there, and it's going to open the study in my account, and we're going to look at those notes that are there. So yes, absolutely. Does with the ITK format and the online sharing format.
Yeah, the online sharing is great when you are going, remember, it's a subscriber to subscriber, so it's somebody who's all using either the Core or the Plus. A Core person can send it to a Plus subscriber and vice versa. You don't have to be at the same level. But it's super easy. You just send that email, you click on it, and boom, you get that copy.
So right, you saw me do it real time. And what I also want to point out, though, that we've had these other questions. Let's say you want to share with a Toolkit member who's maybe even, or someone who uses Investors Toolkit, which is our older desktop product, but they are not even in the Better Investing community, sadly. So number one, you should ask them to join us. But we don't restrict this outbound email to only those in the Better Investing community. So this can go to anyone, and I just bring it up here. We've had that question. So
as can the PDF. If you've got new people that maybe don't have access to a tool at all, at least they can have the PDF and they can read along in your club meeting or what have you.
Right. These last four options, what you can send the first option to anyone, they just won't be able to do anything with it. But so you know, the last four are just other formats that we can do something with. Okay, what else have we got there as far as questions?
All right, let's move on to a bit about managing the library or managing your stock studies. We had a couple questions that were related to how to create portfolios. They don't know how to take a stock that they've done a study on and put that into a specific portfolio. Maybe you can run through that real quickly.
I sure can. Then the place that we would do that is this little folder icon. That's called My Studies. We were over here in the SSG tool looking at things, so we're going to go up to the folder icon, which will bring up what you're seeing in front of you. And this is where you manage your studies and your portfolios. So for me to create a new portfolio, I have a couple, but let me show you. I'm going to create a new portfolio, and we'll call it the demo portfolio. The other two fields here are merely informational. I'm going to save that, and we're going to see it show up here as demo portfolio. It has 0 studies in it. If I click on it, there's no companies in it. I have a way to go back and show all my studies. I have a way to go back and show studies not in a portfolio, so let me do that. Any one of those will work. Now to add a study to a portfolio, I'm going to hit the edit or the pencil icon here and start picking from my list of studies. So I was bringing up LKQ earlier. I can bring that study up. Here's the study name. It's in a bit of gray. If I own this, I might want to put the number of shares that I have, and then I'm going to hit the checkbox, and then when I'm done adding my list, so let's say I'm going to add Gentex or GNT. Yeah, I got it. And maybe I own more of those. And then I'm going to click Save. Now there's 2 companies in my portfolio, and if I click on that, and make it yellow, you'll see those are the two that I just added. And that is the short answer on how you get from your overall general list of all studies into a specific portfolio. Once you have a portfolio, then you can run portfolio reports and such. Now, let me point out there's a couple of other references that you can go to. So I'm going to show you guys that this question mark icon is really about help and support. Let's take a look at what's there, because there's some really helpful references. We have a number of tutorials that we have done. This one will join that list later, but one of them is portfolios in SSGPlus, and if we clicked on that, we will go off and see that portfolio webinar. We're going to have another one in August. I forget the exact date. August
something. I forget it
watch
too.
your email. I will show it to you.
It's going to be at the end. We've got a slide. Don't have to rely on your memories. Thank goodness.
But the Portfolio Quick Start Guide is another handy reference. So it's like the short 8 steps for getting through how to add a portfolio, how to delete a portfolio, how to add a study and add shares, and so forth. So you can either get one of those from, lots of times they're available at chapter events in a handy little guide, or you can download it yourself here from the Portfolio Quick Start Guide.
Yeah, those Quick Start Guides, if you haven't checked those out, we've got the top 4 links there under the Quick Start Guides are what they say, and they are really perfect for getting you started. If you are not familiar with portfolios at all, check that out. The one right above that, if you're not familiar with screening at all, go there. It's going to lead you through the basic steps of that, which kind of leads to my next question. Were we wrapping up with portfolios, or was there something else you wanted to demonstrate there? Because I think that answered the question that did come in. So we do have kind of a general question, if you will, and we had somebody ask about, can't wait to learn about the latest and greatest stock screening features.
Oh, okay. Well, screening is another tab here. So all of these tabs on the left indicate the various tools that are within the whole tool set. If you have either a Core or Plus membership, you will see all of these. No matter if you're a Core or a Plus. And you know what? I'm going to drag over. I opened up a Core account here. And
because it does look a little different.
It does, but how do you know if you're in Core? It'll say Core SSG right up here. But you can see we have all the same tabs on the left. So I just wanted to point that out. There's no missing tool in Core. It's generally just a little bit less featured. So here we are back in Plus. And if we want to get stock ideas, we're going to go to the magnifying glass icon. And the color of the icon represents which tool that you're in. So here we are searching for company ideas in a couple different ways. So all of the latest and greatest screening features, I believe the last one we added was the ability to screen by particular exchange. But for those of you who are not familiar, we have a number of different individual criteria here, including screening by company size. So this has been updated for our new size categories. Small companies are up to $1 billion in annual sales. Large companies are over $10 billion in recent annual sales, and mediums everything in between. So you can kind of put together your own screen by picking these various items and then clicking search. The search results at the bottom is pretty much the same, whether you use the left side to pick your own criteria or you use a predefined screen. I'll demo that in a little bit. But so the search results are all listed here in a list. You can change how many you'd like to see at one fell swoop. So I'm going to see 100 here. We can sort.
And I'll just add, you can see how many passed that by looking carefully at the bottom where it tells how many entries passed that criteria that you set.
Yes. So all of these columns, what sector they're in, what industry they're in, what size they're in, the sales growth over the last 10 years are displayed in search results. You can filter any of these columns. So let's say I only wanted the technology industry. I need to spell it right.
Mm-hmm.
But I see that, there's 23 filtered out of that 170.
Mm-hmm.
So any of the columns can be filtered, and one of the cool things that we like to deal with is this preview data button. If you click on that, then for this particular company, which is ACI Worldwide, you get to see a little mini SSG. So when we're looking for some basic visual analysis, some up, straight, and parallel, we can kind of sort through and see which ones might meet our visual filter as well.
Right. Have your little notepad next to you with the ones you like versus the ones you
Right.
don't. Right.
Right.
Also, point out, because some people, and I know there hasn't been a question, but some people can't see it because the font is so faint, and that's going to the next page. Now you might have to remove your filter. Oh no, you already did.
Right.
Yeah, because point those out.
So if you want to get to, I'm showing 100 at a time. If you want to get to the next 70, just click on Next, and you'll see the rest of those 101 to 170. I will say, though, if you filter them out, like technology, that filters them out of the whole mix. It's not
That
like
works
just the
great.
first 100 or it's not just on that page. So that generally works pretty well. Let's see. Similar concept, but similar concept, but we do it all for you in terms of stacking up the various criteria. We have a quality screen only on dividend-paying companies, and for example, a value screen, small company, and roster of quality. I think roster of quality is the newest one here. If you want to know what exactly goes into one of these screens, like the quality and dividend yield one, just click on the question mark and you'll get a reminder of what goes into that screen. So we're looking for companies with fairly straight earnings, growth rates over 10%, pre-tax profit, trends that are up or even, and so forth. And if I do that, all I need to do is click on it once, and it
turns green.
Yeah, turns green, shows me what I'm doing, and I see the results there.
We have a couple questions going back to the criteria. I'm just going to open these up right now.
Sure.
On the search screen, Belinda's asking, when you pick sales growth to be greater than 12%, and then you also picked earnings growth, she's wanting to know, is that and all those have to be, or is it or? Is it either or?
No, this is an and. And so the more criteria you add, the more strict it gets. So let's say I want a dividend-paying company that's large with fairly robust growth rates, which may not even happen. It has to meet all that criteria. And there are a few that do that. I haven't added, let's say we want with up or even pre-tax profit trends. The list is just going to get smaller and smaller. So right now we're at 14, for example, that meet that. So it's definitely and.
Right, but you may have said it, but when you have all the criteria on a single line, like what Susie just picked there for up or even on pre-tax profit, so that for that particular criteria is an or, but it's and all the other like sales.
Yeah, this is and
criteria. But if it's on the same line and you can pick more than one, then it's either or will work.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, I did gloss over that, so thank you, Anne. So by doing, this would be medium or large and 12% earning, greater than 12% and so forth. So I hope that answered Belinda's question.
And William would like clarification going back to the filter. How did you do that again? He would like to show that. And
let me make it really wide again. So let's just look at dividend-paying companies, and we have our results at the bottom. And let's say I want something in the consumer sector, either cyclical or defensive. I go down to the bottom. for the particular column, and I just start typing in, and it will give me everything that matches
in that column.
in
You know,
that
I have
column.
to say, and Susie and I do have different methods. I never do that. I don't ever go to that column. I use the search box that's up on the top, which says
Right.
search all columns, and I'll put in whatever you put in. Would you put
Like
consumer?
consumer.
Yeah,
It does
and
the same thing.
it will then search not just the sector column, but all the columns, but generally that's going to get me what I want.
It'll
So
get you close enough.
it will
I'll
get me
tell you
close enough.
something like industrials, like IND that I typed up here. You
Hmm.
can see it picked up the industries from here and the industrial sector, so that's a pretty good example of how it
Yeah,
searched
very
all
good.
columns to bring that. So it depends what you want.
Right.
So I hope
But
that was
that,
pretty
I
clear.
love that filter feature, and I don't think enough people know about that. So thanks for making us repeat that, William. Um, there was another one. Oh, maybe
Yeah, there
maybe
was
we,
about going directly to screening first.
yeah, what happened to that one? Oh, here it is.
Oh,
It's still
there it
here.
is.
I'm just overlooking it. Yeah, William again
Let me
was
show you.
asking how he might do that. The question is, how do you go directly to the screening without first selecting a stock to study?
Okay, it's an excellent question and one I do. You can, I go here and save this URL right here. There's two ways. You
Yeah,
can
again,
just
I
go,
never do that.
you
But
never
okay,
do it.
no,
I do it
I
all the
never do.
time.
She's a URL girl. She's
I
always
do.
typing in URLs or
You can
all
just
that.
save this URL here and go directly to screening. Um, you could go to My Studies from
That's
the
what I
green
do.
box and then just swap down to screening. Maybe we should
Right.
put that in the green box to, give people an option, stock ideas.
Perhaps. But so that's an extra click versus you having the URL, but I don't have to remember or know another URL to get to it that way. So
Right.
that's exactly what I do. I just go to My Studies, and you saw how quick and easy it was to either get to
Well,
the screener or the comparison guide or
you
wherever you
know,
want.
right, once you're there, you can bookmark it.
True, true. Yeah, I'm not a big user of those lately either. So
Okay.
anyway, okay. Different
Different ways.
strokes. Yes,
Right.
indeed. All right, where are we? Oh, we have another related searching question. And well, this will be a good one for you to show your core, but this is a question, and it's right here. Where is the ticker heat map?
Oh, right. I'm like looking at the question panel going, we do? Okay.
That was one that came in early.
Right. It did come in earlier. So how to get to the ticker heat map? I'll tell you what happens here is that we talk about the ticker heat map a lot. When you look at the member homepage, you don't see it. So to get to it, let me go back to, it's through the My Studies panel, and you click on this image for ticker
Well,
heat map, and
no,
up it pops.
I'm going to correct you. That's through the
What?
Stock Ideas and Screener
Stock,
panel.
stock ideas. What did I
Yes,
say?
you said My Studies. So,
Oh, no, no, no.
no, no,
No,
no.
stock
Okay.
ideas.
So, keeping you honest.
Right, keeping me accurate, actually. I
Okay.
honestly said that. So you click on the ticker heat map and up it pops. If you have specific questions about the ticker heat map, you can please write them in. We can talk about them. It's basically the top 100 companies that have been opened only in the last 90 days, so they're very recent. Um, for the companies that have been completed with all the judgments, we do kind of a ranking that goes from dark green being most favorable to dark red, which is least favorable. Red does not mean sell and green does not mean buy. It's simply a ranking, and there's 10 color variations from green down to red. So you get an idea of the popularity of stocks in the community, as well as ones that might have more potential return than others. So if I were to look at this, I would say, oh, Skyworks has either gone down recently or has spectacular forecasted growth rates by our community and might have more potential. And I keep saying might and things like that because you have to do your own research. Whereas Pepsi, while still a strong, good company, Actually, I haven't looked at it lately, so again, don't take that as gospel. But is popular. It made it in the top 100 in the last 90 days, and it might have less room to grow either because its price has gone up recently or because the growth rates are not as robust. So that's what that means.
Okay, and there's a related question before you close that. Teresa would like to know, why are there different size boxes on here?
Oh, that is a great question. I didn't actually cover that. The size box is a relative way of showing you which ones are more popular than others. So, for example, one of our biggest boxes is Apple because our clubs and our communities love it. And I'm going to mouse over that. And in that black box, on the bottom line, it says that there have been 1,295 studies created. And remember, that's the last 90 days. So we have tens of thousands of users on these tools. They are, they're like-minded investors like us. We're teaching them all the great things about how to pick good quality stocks. And so that's just a $12.95, doesn't surprise me. Let's take a look at one of the smaller boxes, and you'll get a sense of the range. So what are we talking about? Target with 168 studies in the last 90 days. Again, it's just the size is a popularity thing.
And you can also notice that the size of the sector, too. So the energy that you're hovering over right there, not so interesting to our members right now, but yet the consumer cyclical and technology, lots of interest in those two sectors. Always, yes.
Healthcare is always big. Actually, what I think is interesting here, there are 11 different sectors that Morningstar classifies into. And we show 8 here. Energy sometimes doesn't make the list, and it is making the list now.
Yeah, it usually does. Small, though. But utilities isn't on there.
Yes.
What's that? Materials sector?
Basic materials.
Basic materials, that's not on here. And
real estate.
Real estate, yeah. And frankly, those don't have a lot of growth stocks in them, so it kind of makes sense. But anyways, we diverge here.
Right. So again, to recap, you're going to choose the Stock Ideas tab with the magnifying glass and go over here to the ticker heat map.
Gilbert wanted that. So it's right from, just get to that screening box again from the tool. Yes. Remember that magnifying glass. And why don't you just show your core? Because I'm not sure if this came from a core member. Maybe they're looking for the ticker heat map, and this is a plus member only feature.
Yes. Remember when we went through that chart? And it's in the handout. This ticker heat map is only available in the Plus membership or with SSG Plus. So here I have opened another account that's only a core account with access to the CoreSSG and all the other related tools. If I go to the Stock Ideas panel, there you're going to see a different view. It's less, and that was one of the differences. No ticker heat map, 2 predefined screens, and less criteria. So again, there's enough here to get you started on picking some decent ideas, but it's just less data and feature rich. Aside from that, the way that you operate the search, the way that you use the results is exactly the same between the tools. So I'll reiterate that again.
Mm-hmm. Right. They just have less criteria to work with and less predefined screens. So, okay. Can we segue back? There's a couple of questions, or a couple people asked the same question. They're very interested in the peers pages that we have, and sometimes people would like to print those. Is there a way to print those peers pages or the peers information?
Yeah, let me go here. I'm going to go back and open one of my studies. And we'll open that Gentex study. And if we want to see the peers in SSG Plus, we're going to go right down here and compare peers. And we're going to bring up Standard Motor Products, Superior Industries. And it's only picked 2 there, which is fine. You can always add a third. So the question is, I'm going to interpret the person who wrote in ahead of time as well as the person who wrote in right now. is there an easy way to print this? Well, there's no print function for this yet. I would say that that's
Built
a
in to the tool.
built in.
Right.
That's a great add in the way you could ask for that. I'll show you how to ask for features and a feature request for them. One of the things that you can do is do a screenshot of it and print it right out from your screenshot program.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that would be how I would do it.
I mean, Windows all have this snipping tool now, at least 10 and 8. I'm not sure how far they go back on Windows, and Mac has had that for a long time. So
Right.
check out your own operating system, do a little screen capture, but it's a great idea to get that as part of the printout as an option, I would say, if we wanted to get that data. Okay, so that was that one. We do have a couple other ones that have come in. Let's get to Robert. Let's get to Robert. He's been waiting so patiently, and I put him down, not down, but I put him last because he asked about the comparison guide, and he's wondering if there's a way to save a stock comparison guide to his own account on the BI website. Currently, he's printing a PDF, and he saves that, but when he goes back, he has to start all over again. So, can we help him?
Yes, we can. That is actually a feature that's been built into our online comparison guide since day one, back in 2007, because we recognized that once you'd gone through all the trouble of setting it up and ranking items in the comparison guide, that you might want to save it. So to get to the comparison guide, again, you're going to look at your tool set on the left and pick SCG, which stands for exactly what you might think it does, Stock Comparison Guide. And I'm going to switch to the core view. It's just a little simpler and a little cleaner. It's my preferred view. And then I'm going to add my companies to it. Now, when we add companies to the comparison guide, they don't have to be fully completed studies. And I'm looking for the Gentex one. And there's a couple ways I could look for that. I could scroll and attempt to find it. I could start typing it. And GNT, and I see, oh, here it pops up. We can also add a Gentex study without even having a prior SSG available to it. So I could add one that's just raw data. Now, I haven't done any projections on it, so all the places where we compare estimated and forecast things, they're going to be blank. But
it's an option.
We can do that. It is an option, and sometimes we find a use for that. So let's say I've got 2 or more or whatever. You can have up to 5 companies. This little floppy disk, ironically, the floppy disk icon, if you mouse over it, says Save Comparison. So all I need to do is click on that. I can name it whatever I want to. And it defaults to the tickers, but maybe it's auto supplier comparison. And we say OK. Now we see the name up here. If I start a new comparison, things get reset. Let me just pretend to set another one up and save it. And then I'm going to show you my account now has 2 saved comparisons. So it's saved in your account, and I can go back to that auto supplier comparison and have it be saved.
Right, and you just have to click on that little drop-down arrow that Susie did, and that's where you'll find all of your comparisons that you've saved. So, Robert, I hope that will save you some time and you won't have to start over again on your comparison guides. So, it's a good thing. We do have another question, and it's back on the peers. So if you can go back to your SSG. And Tom, I'm not sure if you're asking about the core or the plus version, but he wants to know how to make peer information display on that graph. I only see the company selected.
Okay. That's a great question, because if I'm here in SSGPlus, I don't see any peers either. And you have to know that you have to click down here in Compare Peers, and you'll see a whole panel of information where you're comparing sales, earnings, pre-tax profit, pre-tax profit margins, and so forth. If you're in Core, and let me use my cool little switcher button here to go back to the Core view, it's going to default and come up to look something like this. And you can only see Gentex, for example. And this, in the legend in its Core, is where you're going to want to turn them on and off. This Change Peers button is where you go to change peers. So they're a little more out there for you and available to be found in the Core version, but you got to know to click them on in the legend.
Right, and it's on each one of the items that you're looking for, as opposed to Plus view. You've got all the peers, and you can kind of quickly look through all of the, I think it's 9 different metrics that we have that we can look at peers.
Right.
I'm using Plus. Peers do not display, he says. Well, Tom, if you're having an issue and you're following what Susie's showing right here by clicking that peers button, maybe we need to follow up with you and see what might be a problem, because it should work this way.
Yeah, you do need to click on them in the legend.
Yes.
I think that was the
I think maybe he's realizing that now.
Right.
You have to click them on and off. By default, and maybe we didn't show that well enough, but by default it is just the company you're studying, and you have to actually turn them on by clicking on the names of the other companies.
Yeah, let me open a fresh company so you can see. So this is Apple. I can open the compare peers, and we only see Apple. And then, yeah, the other ones are listed up here, but you have to click them on. And actually, Ann, I'm going to use this right here because this is a great example of a question that came in late in the day today. It says, and I'm going to edit this a little bit, are there stocks that aren't supported in these tools? So what is supported and what's not supported? Meaning what data automatically flows in. So the bottom line is if it trades on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ or the American Exchange or the Toronto Exchange or the Toronto Venture Exchange as a common equity, not a closed-end fund, but as a common equity, it will be covered. Over-the-counter companies are generally not, although Panasonic is an OTC company, so we will let them in on a case-by-case basis after we review the data. There are so many ugly-looking, unworthy OTC or over-the-counter companies that's how we do it. So there are instructions in our FAQ about how to request that, but that is generally what's going on. The other question that comes up is, after a company issues its IPO, when will it be available? A company, for the stock selection guide methodology to make sense, you have to have some annual data. So until we get that first report of annual data from the company and from the data provider, which is Morningstar, you won't see it in the tools.
Okay, great. I forgot to write that one down, so I'm glad you had it. We do have another great question, and I know we're running close on time before we want to go and look at some of our future update questions. But Susan is asking, and this is something we do get, can you rename, well, this is maybe 2 questions. I interpreted it different, then I read it, and now I'm doing it a different way in my head. But can you rename a previous study? And if so, how would you do that?
Okay. So first of all, let's look at Apple, which has just its ticker. It's not saved. It doesn't have a name. So first of all, I'm going to click the Save the Study. I can name it anything up to 50 characters. I'm going to keep it, its default, which is the ticker and the original date, and save that. And then I'll see that come up here with the study name. Now you want to rename that. If in the course of doing this you want to create a copy of it, you can always copy and create a new name for the copy. I'm going to guess, however, and sometimes we want to do that like when we're doing an update and we want to save another copy at the same time. I'm going to guess that's not really what she's getting at. So the way I do it, right now this is your method. You're going to go back to your My Studies button. I haven't added Apple to any portfolio, so I'm going to go to All Studies here. Here's my Apple study that I just created. The key here is click on the pencil icon and edit it, and then change the name and save it. And then that's how you change the study name. So let's go back to our all studies, and there it is. You can see that study name has been updated.
That's it. That's probably what she was asking. I was actually thinking of the copy way at first when I read the question, because I use that an awful lot.
I know.
Want to save the original and yet have a fresh copy or the same copy.
It seems like some extra steps, but lots of times we do want to make a copy at the same time, so I did show it there.
Yeah, right. 2 ways. Either way will work. You know, now Carol said we didn't have to answer this live, but it comes up so much that I thought maybe you could just address this briefly before we move on.
Sure.
And she's asking, she wants to know how secure the individual data is in a particular portfolio. Is it encrypted? Are there passwords that are encrypted?
Sure.
How secure is her SSG data?
Well, we can start from the, the whole global level, and as the IT director, I guess I'm qualified, and I know I'm responsible for this. So, your account in general is protected by your username and password. Your password is encrypted. No one knows it. So if you call in to reset your password or to find it out, we can't tell you. We will send you a password reset. So no one knows that. They are encrypted. The portfolio data in terms of, this piece here is encrypted. I will say, though, when we look at what's going on there, there's not much. We don't have a lot of people data. We generally, and I'm trying to think of the differences between, like, myiClub.com runs everything under HTTPS, if you will, so the secure connection at all times. So we will end up changing to that, but right now there's not a lot of vulnerable information here. You're looking at what studies are in your account, how many shares you might have, and any additional notes that you might have here. So the portfolio information is encrypted. The notes are not encrypted. So if that's a concern to you, please let me know. I don't have any particular issues about adding additional encryption. It makes it sometimes harder for us to support.
And just a note then, you wouldn't want to put account names and passwords or into that little note there, because it's not really encrypted. Just keep it generic and don't put anything that you wouldn't want to get out at all.
So, but sometimes people's overarching question is how secure is BetterInvesting data in the cloud? And so we have passed a number of audits. We take credit cards online. We have passed payment card industry audits. We have our servers co-located in a secure area where you must be passcoded and passcarded with multiple forms of authentication to get in. The actual equipment is locked down. It is not available to all, even BetterInvesting employees. We have multiple firewalls in and out of our servers, one that handle basic stuff, and then we have another intrusion protection system on top of that. So I feel pretty good that we are up to the best practices in keeping cloud data safe there.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. That comes up so much, and that's why I thought we could just take a couple minutes to address that.
Exactly. It can be a scary thing as you hear about, things moving to the cloud, and this is definitely a cloud application, and what does that mean? A lot of people are just starting to consider this.
Right. All right, so a number of questions. We're kind of going to shift gears here because I see we're kind of at the end of our questions that we had ahead of time, plus we're all caught up in the question pane. So we're going to move to future update questions. So let's take one here. Somebody was looking at the member sentiment in the research area of the tool.
Mm-hmm.
And they're interested in, maybe segmenting that data a little bit further or selecting.
Sure.
I'm not asking it actually correctly, but how to find the studies or just segment the studies that they want.
Right.
Are there going to be some new tools or new features added to the member sentiment?
Yeah, those are great questions. We have a number of things on our radar that are coming out as themes for people. The need is arising. So I will start this discussion off by saying we do have a feature request forum where you can look at the ideas that are already out there that other people have requested. You can vote for them. We do take a look at this. One of our most recently implemented features was the movable graph lines, which had popped to the top over the time we had implemented the tools, or SSGPlus is the #1 feature. And so please look through that. There's a ton of stuff that we consider. I have to tell you that there are a couple other things that we consider. So we're not simply working our way down the list. We have to take into account the resources in our department, and we're very thin as a nonprofit. So we take into account what the user requests are. We take into account functionality that we think that the community needs or that appears as a theme from other channels. And let me give you a great example of that. We were talking at our national convention about a couple of themes here. Member sentiment was one of them. As we demoed it, people kept saying, well, I'd really like it if I did this. And it really, to me, and I believe you, Ann, it emerged as a theme on people wanted a little more way to handle this control, right, yeah. Filtering of this data. So member sentiment, if you're not familiar, is access. You open a company, you go to research, it's under the Better Investing tab, and up comes a panel that is member sentiment, and it loads with all of the completed studies in the past 90 days. So I don't know if you recall the Apple in the ticker heat map was, what, 1,900 and some studies?
It was open. A whole bunch. Yeah.
It was, but a full 746 people have gone through that whole process to complete them, meaning adding all the judgments, meaning you could see what their potential return might be. And there are, my goodness, 30 or so today. So it's interesting in that you can get a sense for particularly for Apple, the wide range of estimates from 3% growth rate to 20% growth rate. Usefulness is to look at, these as reference points. If you select them all, you can scroll to the bottom and see them averaged. So the type of things that we're considering, and that's a yes, we are going to end up doing this for our fall release, and the type of things that we're considering are maybe adding the median in addition to the mean or the average, being able to filter out the past, filter out more easily the past week or 30 days or 60 days.
A selectable date, I think.
A selectable range.
Yeah. Because that's handy because just, I know I want that from my point of view, because if there has been a quarterly release that was really affected the stock, something changed in the last couple of weeks, you can kind of see a shift in some of the judgments, and maybe you want to look at that a little more carefully. Maybe not, but some of us data geeks do want to be able to look at a finer bunch of data, date ranges, more recent. Maybe we only want 30 days instead of 90 days,
Right.
I'll just put my 2 cents in there.
Get
everybody voting for that.
I know. And I'll come back at you and tell you that, we are long-term investors, so.
That I know too. But that doesn't make me want to stop looking.
Right.
So, anyway,
so
all right.
Too much emphasis on today's estimate is probably over the top.
Bad thing.
Okay, what other?
All right. Well,
you know
what? Go ahead.
I am going to address a couple of these other questions that came in earlier and how they apply as themes. And one of those was about the concept of PEG.
Okay,
The
yes, we did
PE
get
that,
one. Yes.
right. And the specific question was, where is the PEG? And someone else wanted to
Are we
know,
not concerned about
are we
this?
not concerned about it?
Don't we really use this?
Right. Um, PEG is a concept where you're going to compare the PE to the underlying growth and kind of establish a ratio that may give you another reference point if it is overvalued or undervalued. It's not currently in the valuation tab of the tool, and I'll tell you very specifically why. PEG does not have a standardized definition. So when and if we go there, and we probably will, because I'm going to reference that is one of our top 5, I think, feature requests, that we have to define it very carefully. So we know what we're talking about. We know how to educate around it. That's a key one for Anne. We don't want people to be confused. I think there's a sense, and Anne, maybe you can speak up on this also, that maybe it was overemphasized in the past. Rather than a reference, it was a gate about what to buy.
This is one of the issues we have with PEG, is that people like to use it in an absolute way. They like to say, oh, I'm looking for a PEG of 2 or less, and I don't think that's valid. You can't use it in an absolute way. And you're right, Susie, there's no really one definition of how PEG is even calculated. So there's so many nuances of it, and frankly, I don't find it difficult. If you have your own flavor of PEG, say it's your projected growth rate divided by the current PE, that's an easy calculation. I can do that in my head. So,
well, recognizing that not everyone can do math in your head the way
okay.
Anne Cunias can,
We all have phones and calculators and stuff.
Well,
so.
I'm going to be more of an advocate for presenting it there, but you can kind of see some of the back and forth that we do at home office when we look at this. Yes, we know it's
we
wanted.
like it. And it needs to be teachable, and that, I think PEG can be valuable for certain stocks, but not for every stock. Case in point, blue chip stocks that have low growth but very high PEG ratios.
Right.
Why is that? Oh, they have very high quality. So there's a lot that goes into growth and PEs and all of that. So we're working on it.
Right, and I think the similar concept is for relative value. So that's a term that actually is really only, there is no outside definition for it. It's really an insular better investing term. And for some reason it has gotten a lot of emphasis in the past. And, in terms of making a valuation metric easy to see, that's one thing. We have to, when we go to add that will come along with some guidelines and some education, and I'm sure Anne's going to provide Anne some fodder for many Ticker Talk presentations in the future.
But it's a simple concept, once again.
Right. So your position is it's a simple concept. You can look at the average PE versus the current PE and say that, hey, we're less than average, so it's less than 1.
Maybe it's an opportunity. I mean, I don't know. I get a little stopped with some of those absolute numbers. People like to put a lot of weight into them. But again, we're thinking about these things, and were you going to talk about, our concept, and it's not maybe in the next release, but, at some point we're looking at adding a separate, maybe another 4th tab that talks about extra ratios, extra data points that really aren't core to the methodology, but other things that people like to consider.
Yes. So happily, we have a lot of room to grow here, and some of the ideas that we want to see are a ratios tab, a financial data tab. I have some other ideas. I'm not going to go quite there yet. I think PEG and relative value would live happily in a ratios tab. The question is going to be if users absolutely have to see them right here when doing a stock selection guide. That's the needle that we're going to have to thread on that one. So we'll figure it out.
Right. We are kind of getting to the end of our time. I'm just going
Okay.
to add one that has come up a number of times. You know, as people maybe are transitioning into the tools, they like that they can bring in certain studies, but can they bring in an entire library if they're a toolkit user? Can they bring in their whole library in one fell swoop?
Not yet, but soon. That was another theme. So right now you can import a single toolkit study at a time, and it's an ITK file format. Anne has seen the working version where you can import a toolkit library. Now we're still working out the details on that, but that one's going to be very soon. So for those people who want to transition all of their toolkit or many toolkit studies at once into the tool, that is, I would say, a couple weeks off here. And in general, I want to also say this, that's kind of going to be out of rotation. We may be doing some little things. Certainly we're always trying to work on bug fixes and so forth, but we're planning on about 2 updates per year. So there will be a couple times per year, the spring and the maybe late fall, that we'll be talking about what's new in tools. So look for those webinars and the features that we're building in here.
And Anita's asking, why would anybody want to bring in a bunch of old SSGs?
Well,
but Anita, if you've taken the time to add your judgments to them, don't forget, when you bring in these, quote, old SSGs, you can always update them to get the current data, but your judgments remain intact. So, you know, for that reason, I think some people want to maintain that work, and, you know, maybe they've got notes that go along with those. There's a number of reasons why you might want to maintain some of those old SSGs.
Right. I mean, I have an enormous number of studies in my account, but mainly because I've been testing and so forth. I'm kind of with Anita in that, you know, if you're in a club or you have your own portfolio, is it really more than 50 active studies?
Right.
Well, some people, but you know what? So it's been quite a while since we released the tool, and now this one is just bubbling up to the top, where people, they're ready to move away from toolkit entirely, and they just don't want to go through the effort, and you can appreciate that. They, you know, they even if it's 50, you know, they just want to import them rather than rekey them, and that's fine. Other people have very large watch lists that they want to make sure they bring over.
All right, we're very close to the end of our time. I'm going to throw it back to your PowerPoint where we can, unless you've got anything else that you wanted to get in there. Well, I think you've got the last few slides are just kind of good information.
And I know there were some questions coming in there at the end, and like I said, we'll follow up with you after the webinar on if we didn't answer your question out loud. I think I do want to point out there's this user feature request forum, feedback.betterinvesting.org. You can vote on features and help give us a sense for what's out there that people are wanting. Yeah, we're not going to answer the questions about, we have no time. But I do want to point out, this is in the handouts, there's lots of references for more information on methodology and forecasting. Check your My Classes area of the website. Better Investing National Convention, our DC event is over, but we are going to be in Cincinnati at this beautiful hotel next year in May, so you might want to consider that. Lots of other resources here, a lot of which are available from that Help and Information tab. So don't forget about those other tools tutorial recordings, the reference materials, SSG Guidelines for Beginners, I'll point out, is an excellent one for giving not rules, but guidelines on your projections. The classes in My Classes area, which are a member benefit, and additional ways that you can get more in-depth on that methodology. Some of the questions tonight are going to be good additions to our FAQ site, so I'll be going through those. If you have questions on the tools or the data or a convention or a membership, check out faq.betterinvesting.org. So you can go there directly. You can go there from the bottom of the BI member page, or there's a link here from this help and support tab in the tools. Now, upcoming webinars, screening and stock ideas. We've covered a little bit tonight, but we'll get into it more, not only just screening and stock ideas in the tools, but everywhere else that you can pick up ideas from the Better Investing website and your Better Investing membership. And portfolio tools in CoreSSG and SSGPlus. Most people get to these webinars because they've signed up through an email. If you're not getting our emails, check your account profile on the website. But they will be posted on the homepage of the website or come through your email as an announcement. And before we sign off totally, I want to remind everyone we have a survey at the end of the webinar. If you could please fill that out, it would be terribly helpful as we evaluate how effective this type of Q&A webinar was. And please give us your suggestions for the future. If you have other specific questions or comments, you're welcome to give us a call or an email at service@betterinvesting.org.
Okay, well that's it, Susie. Thank you very much. Excellent job. It was a joy working with you.
Well, thank you so much, Ann, and thank you to our really capable backroom staff who is helping us out tonight. We couldn't do any of these without you. And thanks to all of you attendees, and good night. Hope to see you again